I thought my husband was working overtime every weekend. For 8 years, I never questioned him. He always came home tired, carrying takeout and apologizing for being late. The smell of greasy Chinese food or cold pizza would fill our kitchen as he kissed our son on the forehead and told me how much he had missed us. I believed every single word. Then, one Saturday, I received a phone call that changed my life forever. A little girl, no older than 7, asked, "Is this Daniel's wife?" Before I could answer, she quietly said, "Can you tell Daddy to come home? Mommy has been crying all day." I froze. I didn't know that little girl, but she knew my husband. That was the day I discovered my husband had been living 2 completely different lives. Before we go any further into this story of broken trust, secret families, and the quiet ways a marriage can collapse, please take a second to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Stories like this one stay with people long after the video ends, and your support helps them reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's begin. My name is Emma. I was 35 the year everything I thought I knew about love and safety turned out to be a carefully maintained illusion. Daniel was 38. We had been married for 10 full years and shared one son, Noah, who was 8 years old and still believed his father was the strongest, most dependable man alive. From the outside, we looked ordinary in the best way. Daniel worked as an electrical engineer for a mid-sized company that handled commercial buildings across the state. He was the kind of man who remembered to buy the exact brand of cereal Noah liked, who fixed the leaky bathroom faucet without being asked, who still held my hand in the grocery store. On weeknights, he helped with homework at the kitchen table. On Sunday mornings, he made pancakes shaped like dinosaurs because Noah insisted they tasted better that way. I used to watch them from the doorway sometimes, coffee in my hands, and feel a quiet, almost guilty happiness. I thought we had built something solid. The only irregular piece of our life was the weekends. Almost every Saturday, and many Sundays, Daniel left the house early. "Emergency maintenance," he would say, pulling on his work jacket. "A client's system went down in the next city. I'll be back as soon as I can." He always looked exhausted when he returned. Shoulders rounded, eyes bloodshot, the faint smell of sweat and unfamiliar detergent clinging to his clothes. He would set takeout bags on the counter, apologize for missing dinner, and kiss the top of Noah's head. I never doubted him. Why would I? This was the same man who had driven 3 hours through a snowstorm the year I had a panic attack and needed him home. This was the man who had sat with me through 2 early miscarriages before Noah arrived, holding my hand in the dark and promising we would try again when I was ready. I told myself the overtime was simply the price of providing for us. I packed his lunches on Friday nights. I kissed him goodbye at the door every Saturday morning. I believed the story he gave me, week after week, for 8 straight years. Looking back, the signs were there the entire time. The way he sometimes smelled faintly of a different laundry detergent when he came home. The second phone charger he kept in the glove compartment for work emergencies. The way he never let me answer his personal phone if it rang after 8 in the evening. The way he deleted his call history so quickly that I once joked he must be hiding a secret girlfriend. He had laughed and pulled me into a hug. "You and Noah are the only secret I need," he said. I believed that too. Suspicion is a quiet thing at first. It sits in the chest and waits for permission to grow. The call came on a Saturday in late spring. Noah was at a classmate's birthday party. I was folding laundry in the bedroom when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Spam calls had been frequent that month. "Hello?" A child's voice, soft and uncertain, came through the speaker. "Is this Daniel's wife?" I almost smiled. Yes, who's this? There was a short pause, the kind that makes the air feel heavier. Then the quiet words that still wake me some nights. Can you tell Daddy to come home? Mommy has been crying all day. She said he promised he would be back by lunch. My mouth went dry. What's your name, sweetheart? She hung up. I stood in the middle of the bedroom holding the phone, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I told myself it was a wrong number. Children dial by accident all the time. Someone else's husband named Daniel. There had to be an explanation that kept my life intact. When Daniel came home that evening, tired, takeout bags in both hands, I watched him more carefully than I ever had before. While he washed his hands at the kitchen sink, I asked, as casually as I could manage, if work had been especially rough. He gave the same answer he always did. Long day, difficult client, glad to be home. Later, when he left his phone on the counter to take a shower, I noticed the call log had already been cleared. Every recent entry gone, only a handful of work numbers remained. I said nothing. I put Noah to bed. I lay awake beside my husband for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying the little girl's voice until the words felt burned into my mind. 2 weeks later, I decided I needed proof more than I needed the fragile peace I was still trying to protect. I told Daniel I was taking Noah to the Science Museum for the day. Instead, I left Noah with my sister, who asked no questions when she saw my face. I followed my husband's car, at a careful distance, staying 2 or 3 cars behind. He did not drive toward the industrial park where his company sometimes sent technicians. He took the highway south, then turned into a quiet residential neighborhood of small houses with neat lawns and children's bikes left in driveways. He parked in front of a pale blue house with white shutters and a flower bed that looked carefully tended. I watched from half a block away, hands locked around the steering wheel, as he got out, locked the car, and walked to the front door. A woman opened it before he could knock. She was younger than me, maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She stepped into his arms the way someone does when they have been waiting. 2 children, a girl about 7 and a boy around 5, ran out of the house shouting, "Daddy!" with the pure, unguarded joy only children who believe they are the center of their father's world can show. I sat in my car and watched my husband become someone else's husband. I do not remember the drive home clearly. I only remember the sound of my own breathing and the way my hands refused to stop shaking. I hired a private investigator the next morning. I used money from an old savings account Daniel never touched and never asked about. Within 10 days, I had a thick file that contained enough evidence to end everything I thought I knew. Daniel had been renting the Blue House for 6 years under his own legal name. He had introduced himself to the woman. Her name was Claire. As a divorced father who had full custody of his 2 children from a previous marriage. The children were real. Claire believed she was their only mother figure after their supposed biological mother had left years earlier. She had no idea I existed. She had no idea Noah existed. She had never heard my name. Daniel kept 2 complete, carefully separated lives, separate bank accounts under slightly different address variations. A second phone registered under a different carrier and paid from a different account. Social media profiles with different photographs, different friends, different versions of his weekend activities. He even maintained 2 sets of medical records in 2 different cities. The investigator found receipts for birthday parties I had never attended, school events I had never known about, weekend grocery runs for a family that was not mine, and holiday gifts purchased in December for children whose names I had never spoken. 8 years, 6 of them overlapping completely with Claire's life. Our entire marriage after Noah's birth had been built on a schedule of carefully timed lies. I sat on the floor of our bedroom with the files spread around me in a circle and realized the man I had loved for more than a decade had been editing his life the way some people edit a document, cutting scenes, rewriting dialogue, keeping only the version that served the moment he was in. The worst part was not the existence of the second family. The worst part was how ordinary the evidence looked. Receipts for milk and bread, photos of him pushing a swing, a handwritten note on the refrigerator in the blue house that simply said, "Love you, back Sunday." Ordinary life, duplicated and hidden. I did not confront Daniel first. I drove to the blue house on a weekday when I knew he would be at the office. Claire opened the door holding a dish towel, a faint smudge of flour on her cheek. She looked confused when I said my name and that I was Daniel's wife. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then her face changed the way a person's face changes when the ground under them simply disappears. We sat at her kitchen table while the children played in the next room, their voices rising and falling in ordinary childhood arguments about toys. I showed her photographs of our wedding day, of Noah's first birthday, of Daniel sleeping on our couch with our son curled against his chest. She showed me photographs of their family vacations at a lake I had never heard him mention, of Daniel teaching her son to ride a bike without training wheels, of birthday cards he had signed, "Love Daddy," in the same handwriting that appeared on Noah's birthday cards at home. Both of us cried. Not the loud, dramatic kind. The quiet kind that comes when you finally understand you have been living inside someone else's carefully written story. Claire had believed every lie just as completely as I had. She had never questioned the weekends he sometimes had to work late. She had never wondered why he never introduced her to his parents or old college friends. She had loved him the same way I had, fully, without reservation, trusting that the man standing in front of her was the only version that existed. By the time I left her house that afternoon, we were no longer strangers. We were two women who had been given the same beautifully constructed fiction and had both chosen for years to believe it. I invited Daniel home for what he thought would be a normal Friday evening dinner. Noah was staying the night with my sister. Claire arrived 20 minutes before him. Her children waited outside in the car with a trusted neighbor. She came into our house, looking pale but steady, and together we set the table for 3. When Daniel walked through the front door carrying the usual takeout bags, the smile on his face lasted exactly 3 seconds. He saw Claire standing in the living room of the home he had shared with me for a decade. He saw the thick file of evidence sitting on the coffee table. He saw my face. The bags slipped from his hands. Food spilled across the hardwood floor in a slow, greasy slide. No one shouted at first. The silence was somehow worse. Then Claire spoke, her voice quiet and precise. She told him the children outside still believed he was coming home to them that night. I told him Noah still believed his father was a man who kept every promise he made. Daniel tried the explanations I had already prepared myself to hear. Stress. Fear of losing both of us. One small lie that had grown until it controlled everything. He said he loved both families. He said he never meant for it to go this far. He said he had become trapped. We let him talk until the words finally ran out. Then I told him the marriage was over. Claire told him the same thing in almost the same quiet tone. We did not raise our voices. We simply removed the last thing he still controlled, the secret itself. He left that night. The takeout still lay on the floor long after the door closed behind him. In the weeks that followed, through lawyers and long, exhausting conversations neither of us wanted to have, a clearer picture of Daniel's choices slowly emerged. It was not dramatic. It was not the stuff of movies. It was ordinary, and therefore somehow worse. Years earlier, before he ever met Claire, Daniel had told a casual lie at a work event in her city simply to avoid an awkward conversation about his marriage status. The lie felt small at the time. Then he saw her again. Then he liked the way she looked at him when she believed he was free and unattached. One lie required another to protect the first, then another to protect the second. Eventually, the two lives existed in careful parallel, each one depending on the other, remaining completely hidden. He told investigators, and later a counselor he was ordered to see, that he had become terrified of the moment either woman discovered the truth, because he knew that single moment would cost him both of them. So he kept going. He scheduled his weekends like a man managing two full-time jobs that could never be allowed to meet. He created separate holidays, separate excuses, separate versions of himself for every occasion. He told himself over and over that he was protecting the people he loved by keeping the peace a little longer. What he never allowed himself to see was that the peace had already been gone for years. It had disappeared the first time he chose the easier story over the true one. He was not a cartoon villain. He was a man who discovered that lying is easier than facing the consequences of the first lie, and then discovered far too late that the eventual cost of continuing is everything that ever mattered. Claire and I did not become instant best friends. Grief is not tidy, and neither is the particular kind of betrayal that rewrites an entire decade of your life. But we supported each other through the legal process. We shared the information the lawyers needed. We made certain the children, mine and hers, were protected from the worst of the adult conversations and the public details. Noah and Claire's children eventually met under careful supervision. They are not close the way biological siblings sometimes become, but they know the truth in age-appropriate ways, and they know none of what happened was their fault. We made that clear every single time the subject came up. The children are still connected in small, careful ways because they are innocent, and innocence deserves protection. Daniel lives alone now in a small apartment across town. He sees the children on a supervised schedule that the courts carefully structured. He has lost both households, both sets of ordinary evenings, both versions of the future he tried so hard to keep running at the same time. In the rare moments we have spoken since the divorce was finalized, he has said almost the same thing each time. He never truly understood how completely one secret could erase the life he thought he was building. I believe him when he says that. It does not change what he did. It does not return the years. Claire and I still talk sometimes, not every week, not even every month, but enough to know that neither of us is completely alone in the specific kind of loss this betrayal creates. We both had to rebuild trust, not only in other people, but in our own ability to see clearly when something feels slightly wrong. That work is slower than any divorce paperwork, and it is still ongoing. Trust is built over years of ordinary days and quiet promises. One secret, carefully maintained, can destroy an entire lifetime of those days. The innocent, especially the children, always pay the highest price when someone chooses to live a lie instead of telling the truth when it still might have been possible to repair the damage. If this story stayed with you, please subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in Emma's place. Your support helps stories like this reach more people who need to hear them. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next one.